Joining me now is Indiana Senator Mike Braun, a member of the Senate Banking and Agricultural Committees, and he is the ranking member of the Senate Aging Committee. Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Your thoughts on the Biden budget?
Well, it's more of the same. When you talk about $258 billion, every bit of it will be borrowed money, number one. It would be adding to this sugar-high economy that we've had ever since he took over. Maria, you never hear about the fact that most of the jobs, or a good number of the jobs, have been government jobs that they brag about in terms of job creation. Labor participation rates are low. He and his crew have grown the federal government to about 25% of our GDP. It's never been more than 20 outside of wartime. So take a crisis, go to town with it. Rahm Emanuel, they have done that and doubled down on it. Inflation, high interest rates, that's the issue behind housing. We do not need more federal government where we borrow every penny of it. That's desperation in my mind.
Well, that overall budget, $7.3 trillion budget that Biden put forth for 2025 includes $5.5 trillion in tax increases. And they're talking about a 3.2% boost in defense spending. But when you look at that compared to inflation, it's actually a decline in defense. So is this what Biden's priorities are, declining defense and higher taxes?
They're political enterprisers, so they're going to always say raise taxes, but that's not going to happen because even when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, they never get that across the finish line. The default measure for our country, Maria, is borrow and borrow and borrow, to the point where they're at least putting a budget out there that's got some honesty, which is $52 trillion in debt in 9 to 10 years. I mean, wow. This has got to stop. The burden we're putting on our kids and grandkids is immeasurable. Never has this happened before in the history of our country.
Senator, I know you're requesting a full audit of Medicare from the Government Accountability Office after uncovering massive amounts of fraud. You write this: the victims of Medicare fraud are often the most vulnerable Americans. American seniors deserve better. The New York Times and the Washington Post both reporting Medicare is in an increasingly large target for fraud claims, data breaches, and online phishing scams. What can you find out here? How did this become such a problem, and what can you do or government do to fix it?
Well, we just wrote a letter to the GAO and just found out they're going to finally investigate. Why it would take a senator to have to weigh in to look into what's happening. Listen to this: $2.7 billion a year on urinary catheters, part of $60 billion a year, and the Medicare Trust Fund goes broke in 4 years. The ineptitude of these agencies and the amount of waste and fraud is unbelievable. I couldn't imagine how you could, dupe seniors, have fraud on urinary catheters to the tune of $2.7 billion, part of $60 billion annually, and the fund is going broke. Something's got to give.
Well, you make a great point, and it's, of course, absurd to hear that you discuss this like this, but what about the ineptitude in terms of getting the work done? There are 6 bills, spending packages that need to get passed. Then this is happening before the Easter recess. Do you think we'll see a government shutdown this weekend?
Well, this song and dance has been going on ever since I've been here, and the leaders like it because it can all be done behind closed doors. And remember, this is spending that should have been done by September 30th of last year. We're now starting to stretch this into the next fiscal years here, and then they get all the earmarks, all the pork barrel, the continuation of spending beyond what we can afford, and do it behind closed doors. Then you generally get a couple days to read a several thousand-page bill. That's got to give, too. It's breaking the country.
Is there any path, do you see, for this supplemental $80 billion package with money to Ukraine?
I think at this stage of the game, Speaker Johnson and the House have said, if you're not going to get substantive border reform, we're not going to jump ahead to try to protect other countries' borders when you've got all of the consequences that come from open borders. We've talked about it a lot in the past. We all know that. They should know what needs to be done first. Again, their priorities are in other places, not here in our own country.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, the Senate hasn't really done all that much about the border. Look, the other day we saw Chuck Schumer say, I had a meeting at the White House and everything was clear. The priorities are Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Yeah, sure, the border needs something done, but we're going to do that later. So have the priorities in the Senate changed? I mean, can you actually do something to secure the border, or are we at the same place we were?
Well, he's the majority leader, and his priorities clearly aren't on securing the border. Then they tried to use the kind of fake border bill that would have codified illegal immigration at 8 to 10 times where it was under Trump, and then say that it was Republicans' fault. They're fast-footed. They always seem to take an issue and get it in their favor. But when you bend this open border crassly to get more voters down the road, the American public is seeing through it. That's why it's the #1 issue back home in our states and nationally.
It sure is. And do you think that is the reason they want to get voters? Because I know we did a whole segment this weekend on the census and how the census captures people, and it captures those people, and then it allows the Democrat districts to get more congressional seats. Is that what this is about, or do you think they actually want illegals to vote in our elections?
I've looked at this, thought about it. What else would it be when you push these crazy border policies unless you think it benefits you in the long run? And then he's out in Vegas, trying to defend, things going south in his own base, where now Hispanics support Trump at about the same level they do Biden.
Yeah.
That should be the statement. And many people have come here legally. They don't want that kind of open border. And he's doubled down. And I think it's going to come back and cost him in November.
Yeah, well, they want to do it the legal way. That's right. Senator, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much.